we're live. Welcome to the Best in Slot podcast, a Warcraft podcast by the community for the community. I'm your main host, Sporty. I'm here with my co-host, Midgettes. Midgettes, how are you this fine Sunday evening? I had to double check what day it was.
I'm doing just great, Sparty. I think it's going to be an interesting podcast because I'm feeling deliberately ornery.
Well then. Fantastic. It'll be a great podcast as Sparty's exhausted. Apparently, I went out last night to, have a few too many beers with friends and celebrate a birthday. And here I am, 32. And, when you go out the previous night, when you're old. You need the entire day to recover.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're getting old, and so going out
Yeah.
and drinking is no longer a thing. Is that
No.
what you're trying to say?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like we used to have scotch hours, years ago, and we'd have so much scotch, and now it's like, okay, I'll have a couple ounces of scotch, and that's it. Then I'm good. Then it's off to bed. And here they want to play beer pong and just like, I miss my days, but at the same time, like, I can't keep up with this stuff anymore. Like, there's no way. Anyway,
You're just getting too old.
that's pretty much it. Towley and I are both having gray hairs now, so. But no gray hairs. We're going to talk about episode 47. So today we'll be talking about really Raider IO, Warcraft logs. There's a good tweet from Kira of Warcraft logs and really the potential negative impact that these kinds of things have on the community. I mean, they do have a lot of positive for them, but at the same time, there is a lot of potential negative impact on the community. But of course, my favorite.
We're going to start with the first part of the negativity and do your joke, right?
Let's uplift everybody here. Okay, do you have any math people in the stream? Listeners, probably. A lot of you are nerds, I'm sure, and, a bunch of math whizzes out there and theory crafters and, sim crafters. So this one's out for you. Or this one coming out to you. Ready? Ready, midgets?
As I'll ever be.
What do you call an intense love of math?
Oh, goodness, what?
Calculust.
Oh, my God, that's awful.
That is fantastic. I thought that was a great one. It's a great joke. You math people love it, I'm sure.
Who says it was a great joke? Even Face didn't like it.
Well, I mean, whatever. That's her approval. The facepalm is approval of that was a great joke. Yeah, as my viewer count drops down in half. All right, well, let's move on. Let's move on. So, dad joke, aside, what else do we have? So, the week after BlizzCon's pretty quiet, right? But, what's sort of been happening in the community so far?
Well, the most exciting part is Spencer and the Starting Zone had a great interview with Chris Robinson.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to say all of these names. I can do Chris and Jeremy and Tina Wang, but that other guy, Frank, he's on his own. I ain't even try his last name.
Frank Kolakowski?
But whatever it is.
Yeah.
After BlizzCon, that's when you get to catch up on some of these interviews, and the Starting Zone's one of our favorite podcasts, so I thought I would highlight that they had a great interview. But you do a lot of reflecting on BlizzCon, and you continue to go through the things. So it's always a quiet week after BlizzCon.
Mm-hmm.
So and this was the first, after BlizzCon. I was still catching up on all of my virtual ticket shows and really enjoyed them and enjoyed the vaults and went through my BlizzCon book, and I've been having a blast. So, but yes, be sure to check out the Starting Zone's interview with the devs, and then there's a few others there too.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's been a fairly quiet week outside of Diablo Immortal. Everyone has con crud, apparently, according to Twitter. Everyone's sick and dying. And listen, stop touching each other's hands, lips, whatever you're doing. Stop getting just, hand sanitizer everywhere.
Yeah,
Wear
I think
masks.
con was real. I think what is it called? Con sickness or whatever?
Con SARS or con crud, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
I think you guys, I think you guys did a really good job because the Twitter has been filled with it. So you guys took BlizzCon home with you.
So the other one that really came out here was, well, number one, Enhancement Shamans, something about, they're being redone, retuned completely, made more fun. There was a post about that about 3-4 months ago, and Enhancement Shamans were hit with tuning adjustments. That was awesome. So
just in time for 8.1.
Well, just in time to have the classes fixed with, 35% more damage from Boulder Fist. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Shamans are pretty upset right now. They thought they were going to get a bit of a major class rework, similar to what Shadow Priests, I believe, are getting in 8.1. So quite a bit of disappointment from them because, Shamans are right now the redheaded stepchild outside of...
Well, in fairness, they've been upset since before Legion ended.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah, no, no, for sure. And poor
There
Sean's.
are a lot of shamans that are now priests.
This is true. This is true. I mean, yeah. I mean, how else do you? You can only warm the bench for so long, right? And you got to roll a decent class. Um, so in
Unless you're Nataro.
yeah, Toro friggin' Zeus. So there's a couple of the really good interviews out there in the community. Eurogamer sat down with Alex Fraziabi, whatever you call him, about Sylvanas and the story of Battle for Azeroth. Some really cool highlights from that interview. Basically, having a divided fan base about Sylvanas is a lot more interesting than a one-sided, one. So clearly the right direction path. Um, it's a really cool interview. Definitely check it out. He's one of the big story guys for Warcraft, and they try to flesh out these sort of big major arc storylines years in advance. So this was clearly coming a long, long time ago. And apparently there's a lot more Sylvanas story that hasn't been told yet. I don't know. We'll see. Did her boyfriend leave her when she was young? I don't know. Like maybe that's why she's so upset. And
No, no, no. I have to tell you because I've been playing my horde
uh-huh.
and I've been having a blast. The quests are awesome. I found a pet that's horde only. I found out there's a mount that's horde only. I am now going to start the riot that Blizzard likes horde better than alliance. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we're going to start a new movement.
Okay. Well, whatever. Have fun.
Aren't you going to join me?
I don't know.
You should come do the quests though. They're awesome.
When I have time,
You're getting too old. You're getting too old for this stuff, Sparty.
Yeah, I know. I'm just getting too old for everything. So the other one that happened was the Forbes interview with Ian Hazakostas, just about war mode, and I mean overall they're pretty happy with it. There's a decent balance between Alliance Horde sort of winning stuff. Win rates right now are 54% Horde, 46% Alliance. That's not including rated battlegrounds. Obviously Horde favoritism. That's huge. An 8% difference, like that's huge. Like imagine, I don't know, a million battles and 54% of them are towards Horde. That's, I don't know, one of you calculus people, do the math on that one. That's a lot of potential battles, right? Like that's a lot. That's a huge, huge discrepancy, at least in my skewed stats, brain.
Well, we're going to talk about numbers more.
We will for sure. But yeah, I mean, there's clearly some racials that are clearly too strong, and they have been too long for the Horde, and maybe there'll be some nerfs. Who knows? It's probably too far.
What
too
is
late.
it? The Blood Elves and the Arcane something or other.
Berserking and well, the Torrent was nerfed, but Berserking is still too powerful a racial for some classes, and that's, I mean, it's getting a small nerf, but we'll see what happens. Yeah.
They like the Horde better. I'm just going to start that. Did you see that we finally had a plus 21 keystone completed in time?
Yeah, that was exciting. I mean, some of the top players out there are doing it, but a 21 completed in time is awesome because I've seen, I think Sloot and Jack on their Twitter, like they were in, I don't know, like for hours doing another keystone or something. But to have a 21 completed in time, fantastic. I mean, it was a solid group there. I don't think I have it up here. Oh, here it is. Lepan, which was a Blood DK. Of course, Blood DKs, because, like, nerf them some more. There's a Mistweaver Monk, a Demon Hunter, Genji, which you guys know as the Beast Mastery Hunter, and Speed of Life, the Sub-Rogue. So pretty cool that they got 21 completed in time. They need to do more. Like, I don't know, do more giveaways. The next one should be, 25 completed in time? And they just got to keep pushing it. But that's awesome, for people that are
It is awesome, and it's exciting, and it's fun to watch them.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Like, it's exciting, right? I mean, people are, yeah, it's boring to watch people play. You can go do yourself, but like it's really exciting to watch some of these like dungeons and how they do them. And when I group with really proficient dungeoners, some we have in our guild, it's really awesome how well they know the dungeons and instances and like, okay, well you can, knock back this group and, trap this thing and we just have to completely avoid it. So a lot of really smart plays that people have developed and learned over time, which is really, really cool. So that's part of the reason I like doing them. I'm not a huge fan of Mythic Pluses, but, when I'm in a really proficient group, it is awesome.
I'm a huge fan of finding excuses to get out of Mythic Pluses.
Like your goldfish is drowning and,
pretty much.
Your pet battles need leveling.
Right? Well, I did hear that there is in the news that there are going to be more mobile titles coming for Blizzard products because we like those mobile games.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, people are upset. Like, holy crap, they're going to ruin Warcraft. They're going to ruin Hearthstone. They're going to bring Hearthstone to mobile and Diablo to console. And they're going to bring Heroes of the Storm to mobile. Like, Okay, I mean, listen. This is Sparty the dinosaur saying, "Listen, you friggin' dinosaurs, mobiles are the way of the future. That's the way it is, right? Like these games, yeah, they're catered towards different markets and different people, and you know, Diablo was catered to 13-year-olds, and that's what people are upset about. But most of us were probably around 13 when we first played Diablo, which is totally fine. But really, like those mobile games are the way to go. Like that's the way it's going to happen. And there was already that one video of the guy doing Mythic Talic as a tank on that little like switch looking thing, which is pretty cool. I'm like, I wonder if this is just like a video and he's just pressing the buttons randomly to sort of pretend that he's playing. But no, it was pretty cool. And yeah, it's the way of the future. It's going to happen. They're working on lots of different titles, and they're working on Diablo 4, and they're working on Diablo 2 Remaster, and doing all those kinds of things. But at the same
And they're
time,
working on Classic, which nobody thought would ever happen.
yeah, they
So,
work on Classic and they remastered Warcraft 3. Like, there's so many different projects, and to say, well, they're pulling people at, well, they're not going to pull friggin', I don't know, who's Ian Hazacostas off of the Warcraft team to go work on little dinky, mobile Warcraft. Like, that's not going to happen, right? Like, they have their own different teams for their own different things, and Blizzard's constantly hiring more and more people. Just look at their careers page. So,
I don't remember which dev it was that said it's not. I think it was a Blizzard CS person that said it's not like we just have one person here.
I
we,
know,
we
right?
all do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, Warcraft's already got the mobile app.
Mm-hmm. We've had Warcraft
Brogan
on our phones
just
for a while.
mentioned
That's right.
that. Yeah, he said he'd love to do pet battle. Can you imagine what would
Oh my
happen if I had
God.
pet battles on my phone? I would never get anything done.
See,
But the good news is I wouldn't be cranky.
yeah, but like that's a great idea. Like, why not do pet battles on your phone? We have the Pokemon Go things already, right? So why not a pet battle app where maybe there's a cooldown? I don't know. Maybe you can do that like once every half hour. Sure, they could monetize it, I guess.
Hey! Quit being excited. You're supposed to be mad.
Well, like I mean, that's like I would do that because I don't want to waste my time doing pet battles. Well, to be frank, I do pet battles now in game for the EP or just like I just like doing them. I don't know. Like I'm in that point where we raid one day a week now. Cool. Let's go do some other stuff, right? Like let's see what else this expansion has to do besides raiding. So I've been enjoying.
Well, just so you know, we have a sign up in the guild because I know you're going to want to come for the time walking of Black Temple next week. I know how much you're looking forward to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so mobiles are coming. They're here to stay. That's the way of the future. You need to jump on the train or get out of the way, basically.
I cannot wait for time walking Dragon Soul, Sparty.
I'm not looking forward to doing any of that stuff. Listen, I did all those dungeons back in the day. I have zero desire to do them again. It's stupid that I didn't save my transmogs from like vanilla and all those other things because I owned them. I had everything, and now I got to redo them again for friggin'. I don't know. I guess I got to do transmog stuff. Whatever. Anyway, moving on. 8.1 updates. So this one is more for the levelers. The XP requirements for leveling have been substantially reduced from 110 to 120.
Actually, throughout for all of the experience.
Yeah. I think it was a 5% minimum to like a 20-30% depending on where it was because they want people to level and they want people to get through stuff pretty quickly, which is good.
Well, and I think they're doing more with preparation for more allied races because truthfully, the allied races, and I know there's several classes that I plan on going from 20 all the way up to 120 because I want the appearance. And I'm looking forward to the cool terrain. And by the way, I still want to have the Volpera as a race. And gnomes, mecha gnomes. I mean, think about all of those. Yes. And I'm going to want to level one of those. I haven't decided who's going to be a mecha gnome, though. And there's all these important decisions. So I'm glad that they've made it easier for me to get there.
No, that's good. I mean, for the people that love leveling alts, great. I mean, I probably get about 10 minutes on an alt. I'm like, nope, can't do this. I can't. I don't do alts. I've got like 1,100 days played now on my main character. So you multiply 11,000 times 24 hours. That's a lot of hours in a holy paladin. But I mean, I love it. So anyway,
see, I've got my dark iron shaman ready to level, but she's waiting for that buff.
Yeah, and Loria says here, she needs the mecha gnome. Spencer loves the new High Mountain Tauren heritage armor. Okay, cool. I don't know. I mean, I like my own transmog. I'm really boring, and change sucks. All right. So what else? So we did talk about pet battles, right? Squirt, the thing that the
No, you
little.
forgot
Oh
the
yeah,
fifth
that's a
ring
big one.
showing up on the.
Uh,
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
big
that's a big
deal
one. So the
for
other,
some people.
well, yeah, for some people, for the in terms of Azurite, so the fifth ring. So Blizzard is planning on trying to solve some of the Azurite issues and the randomness issues with adding another ring to Azurite. So you'll have um, five rings. You'll have two spec, or like it'll be two traits per spec on the outer ring, and then you'll have your regular ring, and then you'll have your sort of whatever ring, and then a utility ring, and then your middle one as well. So more rings, more Azurite. That being said, I think it's showing as 40 is what you need. So 40 AP Azurite power is what you need to unlock everything on Mythic, which seems pretty reasonable. I don't know. I mean, I sort of anticipate they're going to bump it, um, but who knows?
I just want you to know I saw some. I don't know if it was on the PTR data mined, but I saw the AP neck levels, and they didn't stop at 32, just like they did with the weapons. They
Hmm.
went to 100 or some stupid number, and I went, nah, closed it down, and I didn't do a world quest today at all. I protested.
Okay. Well, in other news, I mean, I'm almost 32, which is great because I've got a couple more pieces to finish on Mythic. And at the rate that we're looking at, like we're getting, one trade a week, which is totally doable with very minimal effort. It'd be nice to have all of our stuff unlocked when Mythic comes out. Like that'd be pretty cool. It's a nice little bonus. But I mean, I wonder if
So
they're gonna.
how? So what's going to be the goal for Death Jesters to do that? Because I'm still messing around, and I think I'm at 28.
I mean, we'd like to be as close to 40 as possible, but again, it's still early. We don't know yet. There's no set, numbers. We're going to see how things are tweaked on the PTR still. But really, if people keep up their, one trade a week, it's easy. Like it's again, do a round of islands, do a couple of world quests, do some mythic pluses. You're there for rating, cool, and you've got your thing done. So it's minimal investment, but for a lot of potential game gain long term. Um, and I mean, it should be a little bit easier because the last thing you need is it's 2 weeks before the next raid comes out. 8.1 is already there, and suddenly you're scrambling, and your guild says, "Hey, you should have this many traits," and you're going to be like brain dead on islands. So I mean, take your time, everything in moderation, right? That's sort of what we're doing right now, just having fun with each other, doing whatever. And
Yeah,
AP's coming.
which is why I'm at 28 and you're at 32.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Because
you
I'm having fun doing other
of
things.
course. So I know there's a. So we did talk about Squirt. So Squirt, the pet leveling thing. Speaking of Midget's favorite things, so there's a pet battle weekly. So explain this to me. So Squirt is the garrison um, thing you have to fight, and then there's also a pet battle.
So basically, what happens is every day in your garrison, for
Yep.
those who battled back in the day of the garrison, you would have different battle masters to fight. And there's one called Squirt. And within that, you even without the pet battle bonus, it's one of the quickest ways to level pets. And there's only 2 or 3 times a year that it falls at the same time as the pet battle week, which is what we're on. Yesterday happened to be the day,
Mm-hmm.
and you can level a pet from 0 to 25 in 2 pet battles. And it's very easy. You can get the ideal team and then just power level your pets. So I was power leveling until raid reset this morning. I did some of them last night, and I probably kicked out at least 30 or 40 from 0 to 25.
Wow, that's awesome. And so the next one is when? When does it all
Next
line up?
one is around Christmas time, I believe.
Yeah, I think Jeremy Fiesel said it's Christmas Day. So have fun, I guess, pet battling Christmas Day. Most people are going to be busy, but it sucks that it lines up on Christmas Day because, come on, like people are usually busy that day, right? Like,
Well, true,
yeah,
but I still get my coffee, so I'll be able to get a few in. I'll get all of the new acquisitions that come in and get them leveled up too.
that's true. And then I think the one after Christmas comes rather 150 days later. So it's yeah, pet battling people are gonna have to wait.
Aelid has a point. If it was on mobile, then I could do it while I was at Christmas.
That's right. While you ignore your family, you are pet battling on your phone. Like I'm
Sounds like the best Christmas ever.
I don't know. I'd love to see. Does anyone gonna hate on pet battling mobile? Like, is anyone not down for that? Because I don't see a single thing against it. Like, that's friggin' awesome. Pet battling on phone. We should go tweet this idea or like copyright it or something. um, Yeah. So what else? What else is new? So you had a favored Waycrest, and there's a community Easter egg thing and the in Waycrest Manor. Tell us about that.
Okay, so there my favorite instance, and I've made no secret about it, is Waycrest
Mm-hmm.
Manor. I love the music in there. I love the way the eyes follow you. I can't wait to get in there when I can out level it and just go explore the whole thing without doing the dungeon. Our favorite secrets finding community has found an Easter egg within there,
Ah,
and if you get certain tones and certain organ sounds, you actually get an additional boss to fight. Other than that, I don't think it gives you a special pet or anything else, but it's just another reason to get in and enjoy that instance.
cool. Awesome. Yeah. So a bit of extra music and cool little Easter eggs, and I guess that's where the next raid tier went. Musical Easter eggs in Waycrest Manor.
Oh, would you stop? You go be your elite raider. I'm going to go be the casual, and I'm going to go play with my organ music. Leave me alone.
Speaking of rating, so Mythic is now cross realm available thanks to all us Alliance guilds. You're welcome, Horde, for unlocking really cross realm rating. So once both Horde and Alliance had 100 guilds clear it, get their Hall of Fames, cross realm rating is now available. So those of you doing sale runs, awesome. But also means for those of us on different servers, we can now raid together, do that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's great. I don't know. Nothing else to say. Mythic cross rating available. Awesome.
Well, you can talk about the testing that's going on.
Yeah, so there is some Mythic raid testing going on. Jade Fire Masters, Conclave of the Chosen, Mecha Torque, which is really cool, and Grong. And there was testing this weekend. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it as I was working all weekend, but I believe they kept normals up, which was awesome. Yeah, I mean, more raid testing. Hopefully, things are balanced. The raid encounters look pretty awesome. They're probably not as not as spread as some of these current ones, which means melee might have more of a shot for a raid spot, which is great because there may not be as many mechanics that will murder the melee. So, yeah.
An
Uh,
organ monkey pet. I love Spencer. Yes, I'm over it.
yeah, just let's go tweet Fiesel right now. Give us Organ Monkey Pet, please. 8.1.
Don't forget our popcorn. We got our popcorn fixed by tweeting him. Do
That's
you still
true.
use your popcorn? I use
No,
it
I think I used
regularly,
it once
just
and
so
I
you
totally
know.
forgot about it. Yeah, no.
You're no fun.
Yeah, I know I'm boring. So
Well, then let's talk about classic because you like it a lot too.
of course, you want to talk about classic now? I'll be
Well,
talking.
yeah, I want to talk about Thoughtbot. I'm
Oh,
done with raid stuff.
oh yeah, okay. So Wowhead has added the Thoughtbot comments to their classic NPCs items. So how does this work? So did they add the Thoughtbot comments themselves from the original Thoughtbot, or are they
Yes.
adding them as like the author is Thoughtbot and just making up whatever bullshit comments?
No, they're adding them from Thoughtbot. They're really
Oh,
cool. You should go look at
that
some
is
of the
pretty cool.
samples.
That is pretty awesome. So, hey, this Thoughtbot quote is from like 2005 and says, "Hey, this green cloak looks exactly like this one," right? So some of those old like history captured comments.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. That's
Well,
awesome.
and Thoughtbot, when I first started playing Warcraft, and it was on the, phasing out. But I remember Thoughtbot, and for the classic vanilla experience, I think it's an exciting addition.
Yeah, no, I mean that's pretty cool. And for those of you who don't know, Thoughtbot was one of the original. I mean, they were pre-Wowhead, post Alakazam, because Alakazam is the big sort of group of websites that does all these data things, and I guess they own Wowhead or something. However, it works. So Alakazam was there back in EverQuest, and Thoughtbot came in early on through Fires of Heaven to create this big compendium resource. Um, and now we have Wowhead as one of our main repositories of things, which is really cool. But yeah, to add some of those classic comments is really cool. The evolution of that word has been terrible though. So yeah, I went there.
You went there.
I went
Of
there.
course you did. Now I wanted to thank Blizzard for taking our top 10 things that we really liked in 2017
Uh huh.
and implementing them in BFA. I'm very pleased. I do want you to know they tweaked it a little bit.
Oh
But
yeah.
if you remember prolonged power, it took us what, nine
Oh
months,
my god, that
12
stupid
months, something like
spider raid
that to
boss. Yeah.
get that rank 3 prolonged power.
Uh huh.
Well, they finally one of the recipes that you need for your feasts, they hadn't had, which is the called tiramisu.
I
They
love
didn't have the rank
tiramisu.
3. Yeah, they didn't have the rank 3. And of course, I missed it. It came out 2 days ago. I was so annoyed when I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I missed it.
You missed a feast?
I missed the rank 3 on something that we need for the feasts because it
Oh man.
finally popped up. So I don't know if I've got to wait another 12 months or if it's going to be on 6 month timers. And I don't know why Blizzard hates me.
Oh, that sucks. So, what? How long has BFA been out now? Like 3 months?
Yeah, something like
So it's
that.
this is the first time in 3 months that it's come up.
Yes.
That's crazy. They gotta fix that stuff. That's ridiculous. Come on. You know, like sanguicells and shamans. Fix them.
Well, I hope it's not like prolonged power. I hope we have a shorter rendition, but I'm still annoyed.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess that's it for what's new in the community, other than this interesting tweet we saw. You want to talk about
Yeah,
that?
but so that was a lot. I mean, that's a lot in the community that is going on and things to update. But yeah, let's move on to sort of the crux of the episode, which there was a Kira of Temerity. For those who don't know, Temerity is a guild. Kira, plays in that guild. Huge coder, theory crafter, that kind of stuff, and owns and operates Warcraft logs. And the tweet coming out of Kira, great guy, obviously. The level of toxicity says the level of toxicity increases with ease of content. This is generally true for both World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy, who he also operates their log sites. People have ridiculous expectations / requirements for forming of pugs of what he'd say is more accessible content. For example, people requiring ridiculous Raider IO scores to do relatively easy keys, people asking for Warcraft log add-on like Raider IO for heroic and lower pugs. I mean, this has sort of been around for a while, right? The next guy, he had a follow-up tweet from Larold Live that said, I play my warrior on the 99th percentile. I've been clearing 10s on him for months now. But within the last couple of weeks, I've gone from instantly finding groups to taking 30 plus minutes to find a group due to Raider IO creep, which basically means it's getting higher and higher and higher and tougher to find those groups because of how Raider IO sort of does their scores, their rankings, and the whole, tool itself.
Oh, no, no, no. Wait, Sparty. I want to do a Waycrest Manor 4.
Okay.
And I'd like you to have a Raider Ice or score of 5 million, please.
Okay. Well, I mean, you'll be waiting there. You might have more luck waiting for your tiramisu than finding a.
Well, what's usually funny about those people that do that is they're asking for a higher Raider Ice O score than they themselves have.
Yeah, and a lot of it is a big joke, and we often joke about it too, right? Where these people want these achievements and must have this item level, and the item level is so high that you would never need anything from that raid ever again. Like it's always that ridiculous stuff, right? Gearscore. You guys remember Gearscore back in the day? Was
No,
some.
I wanted to ask about Remember Gearscore. See the
Oh yes, okay, sorry. Go ahead, please. That was your line.
It says, because we were going to work into Remember Gearscore. You're the old guy.
You're right. I
You've been
do remember
playing longer
Gearscore.
than me.
Thank you for bringing it up, midgets. Yeah, I mean, I remember Gearscore from eons ago, and I never used it because I had a pretty thriving guild throughout all of Warcraft. And I mean, there was a lot of Gearscore hatred back then, and part of it was founded, and part of it was unfounded, and basically it came down to this one guy said on MMO Champ, Gearscore is a fine add-on. It's a good tool to measure gear. If you want to progress, even in pugs, gear does matter. In theory, Gearscore is just another add-on to help raids find geared people for said instance. In practice, it's great. In practice, rather, that's a whole different story because people want to gear way too seriously, and it's really the community that is the issue and not the add-on. So what they're saying is essentially that people are putting these arbitrary numbers together as a requirement when the gear score should be much lower, right? Realistically, it should be a lot lower to what is, applicable for doing that raid or dungeon or whatever, rather than, what they should be doing. So they're putting if you're what are our item levels now? 3, you need to be 380 to join a heroic raid, which is pretty crazy, right? Because by 380 you're in full mythic gear, right? That's a good example.
Some of that is that people want to try to have the most successful run as they can.
Yeah,
but are we overvaluing the numbers? Is it really a more successful run?
And that's the thing, right? People want to have a super smooth run because they think, well, generally speaking, yeah, gear means they're going to be a really skillful player. that's not always the case, and we're
Well,
going to
it
talk about that
used
too.
to.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think it's the exact same as it used to be, right? With gear score, item levels, right? Same exact thing, right? Raider IO scores, there's a whole big flawed system. Um, but yeah, I mean, it changes, and with the changes of of the availability of loot over the years, the add-ons that have evolved, different ways to look at the unknown of a player's skills. Are these great tools, or are they being abused, or both? I mean, I think they're good tools, but they're probably being abused, right? Like they're being taken out of
Well, we
context.
know they're being abused.
Well, of course.
I mean, even if you do, so Blizzard took away Group Finder,
Uh huh.
okay, and within it they've left their Group Finder,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. But people will look at your Raider IO score and just decline you.
Yeah, because you
I
can
mean,
see.
it's like, really?
Yeah, well, you can see, who's starting the group. So, okay, I'm just gonna pull up Raider IO on my other score or on the screen here, and says, "Oh, Sparty has a crappy Raider IO score. Guess I'll decline him." Right?
Well,
Like
you don't even have to pull it up in another screen anymore. It's an add-on. You just have to mouse over them.
that is fantastic. Well, I mean, that's a really cool add-on. First of all, save the time, but at the same time, like, is a score everything? I don't know. I mean, what is a good Raider IO score these days? I think what like 1,000 is you've completed all your tens in time, something like that, right? I mean, how does it sort of work?
Well, I don't know a lot about it because guess what? I have more excuses to get out of Mythic Plus.
Ah, okay.
But one of the things that when I was working on it in Legion, and one of the things that we came up when we were discussing this, because you came and asked me this, you said, "Is this really true?" Is I found out that if you get your Mythic Plus done earlier in the week, you're going to likely have a higher Raider IO score, especially on a busy server like Storm Rage. So what happens is this add-on can only pull the top 500. So if you're 501, you don't get a score for that dungeon. So it does impact it. That's why everybody's racing to get them done on Tuesdays.
Wait. I am a Hall of Fame Gahoon slaying player, and if I only do dungeons on Saturdays and Sundays when I have time, you're saying I'm not going to have a Raider IO score
Correct.
on
If
Storm Rage?
500 people on Storm Rage, if 500 people have beat you to that level. Now, if you do a 17, chances are you will get that score. But if you're doing a
Okay.
10 or an 8 or a 7, where a lot of the population has already done it for the week,
Uh huh.
chances are you're not going to get any credit for that. So you're not going to get credit and it's going to impact your score. I do most of mine at the end of the week. So I don't get a great Raider IO score.
Well, you dirty weekend casuals, you need to be like those no-lifers playing on Tuesday and racing to 16s and 17s and 10s to do their stuff on time. I mean, that's the only way you're going to get a score, which is, it's a huge flaw, and I think in that system, and part of it is the Blizzard API itself, because that is the limitation, right? I mean, it can't pull all, million people. It's pulling the top 500, and unfortunately, that's the way it works. So how
So
does
how useful of a tool is it then if it's not getting everybody?
well, that's the thing.
What if Sco doesn't get to his until Saturday?
Denied. I don't care who you are. Your Raider IO score is shitty, then that's it. Too bad. And you're playing a warrior? Oh, man. That's like minus 100 Raider IO score. Yeah, how does it impact the community? Well, look at that other guy who's got 99th percentiles, I'm sure, in heroics, and who's been completing his 10s, and now it takes him longer to find a group because the Raider IO scores are getting higher and higher and higher for what the community perceives as the minimum, right? So as the flood levels rise, right, everybody else rises as well with them. And so, as people are getting more proficient with these tens, and the Raider IO base level, for what people could be doing, could be the same thing, right? Could be the same thing across the entire first rate tier. It's getting higher and higher and higher because, well, now I'm getting that score, and now everybody else is getting that score. Well, we need to continue raising it because we want those better players doing our runs, and we want to be carried, right? So it does have a bit of an impact. I don't know. It's not the best thing. It's a tool, but it's one of those tools that is probably not being used as best as it could be. Do I have a suggestion for fixing it? Not really, because of the limitations of the Blizzard API. But
Well, but that's not I mean, the misuse of the Raider IO score
mhm.
isn't a limitation of the Blizzard API because the problem with the Radar IO score is people are using it solely to say you either are good enough to play with me or you're not. And that's a community issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Like it's this is the score, and the scores they're I think they're putting together are too high. Like that's my issue with it, right? Like, well, people can do whatever requirement they want. You know, you have an ugly transmog. Sorry, I'm better than you. You can't raid with me. And people can use whatever arbitrary judgment they want, or number, or transmog score, whatever it is, or achievement points, or date of ahead of the curve. Um, but I mean, I think this one's definitely being abused because of some of that Raider IO creep that's going on, and people don't see the context behind those things, right? So when you look at Raider IO scores or Warcraft log parses or item level, like neck AP, whatever it was, these players and guild ranks can be useful tools, right? All those things can be useful tools. Um, and it may meet the skill requirement of that run or guild raid or whatever it is, right? There's things that help you, but these tools should be used intelligently and I guess in moderation, because I mean, if anybody knows, parses sometimes don't mean shit, right? Like parses can be cheesed like crazy. I get people applying to guild like, hey, look at all my 99th healing percentiles. Like, oh, let me compare them with mine. Oh, I see. So your raid took 10 million more damage than my raid. No wonder you had stuff to heal. Well, guess what? My raiders do a pretty good job not standing in shit, and so we have to drop healers now in order to to not be bored. So parsing can absolutely be cheese, whether it's AOE cheesing or the mother exploits, and Kira of Temerity has been good because he's been trying to nullify a lot of those parses. Zool is the other fight now that is not counting towards people's all-star ranking, but I mean a lot of that stuff can be cheesed, right? Gear can be bought, right? Now that we have cross realm mythic, guess what? Lots of gears can get sold. So if higher item level doesn't mean you're a fantastic player, right? It could mean you had a lot of gold and you play the auction house really well. Raider IO scores, same thing, right? Like you can get your tens or whatever done early on and spend the gold, right? It's based on who's first. So if you want to get a higher IO score, cool. On Tuesday, that is when you should buy a run from people, right? Whatever it costs, the
I,
token.
I could buy one every week. I
Yeah.
make enough gold.
Oh, absolutely. You could.
And if I did it on Tuesdays, does that mean I could go on any run whether I knew the bosses or not?
Well, you can probably just put everybody on follow. They're going to four-man that 10 and do it for you. And, you can look at pet battles or do pet battles on your mobile phone while they carry you to a 10. And does that mean you're a fantastic player? Well, it mean you have a high Raider IO score. So what does that mean? It means well, you did your 10 on Tuesday, right? I mean, whatever it is. I mean, it's going to be higher ranks or higher keys as well throughout the week as people do their 11s and 12s and 15s. People that want to push it, is getting there first, meaning, Midgets is the best? No, it just means she bought it first or she did it first, right? So, again, the tool is a little skewed for how it works, but it is what it is, partly because of leaderboards and partly because the numbers that we're setting ourselves up for, we're setting ourselves up for failure, right? With putting these crazy Raider IO score numbers. So, same thing with
Well,
Mythic,
and
though.
keep it, yeah, it is the same thing in Mythic. And we've talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who gets 8 of 8 Mythic that first week,
Mm-hmm.
okay, is, even if they did more pulls than you, let's say they did 500,
Mm-hmm.
they also didn't have all of the improvements that happened throughout the X pack or throughout the tier to when you got yours.
Yep.
And so it does make a difference. And I can go buy a mythic run, a mythic 8 of 8 achievement too.
You totally could. I mean, it's going to cost you a lot of pets, but absolutely. So again, when people apply to the guild and they say, "Hey, I got cutting edge every single tier," fantastic. When did you get cutting edge? Right, that achievement number or the achievement date is important. Did you get the cutting edge like 2 weeks ago, like a month into the tier? I don't know, like a US 100 rank, or did you get it 2-3 months later? When you had so much gear and experience and all the bonuses plus nerfs of the bosses, and guaranteed nerfs are coming out of those bosses, did you get it much later and then get cutting edge? Because there's a huge difference between getting cutting edge in a US 100 and a US 500, whatever it is, right? So again, a huge difference in terms
Well,
of
and I know it looking at the logs
yeah.
of people that'll come in, especially, and we saw it a lot in Legion
Mm-hmm.
when I was reviewing the logs for the Death Jesters applications. And they would come in and they would say, "Well, I'm 8 of 8 myths," and we'd look at them, and their top DPS would not even come close to you guys' bottom DPS, and we'd say, "I'm sorry, you're you're just not quite ready to be here yet."
But what do you
And
mean
they
I'm
would come
cutting
back and say, "Well,
edge?
yeah, you don't know what you're missing."
Well,
Okay.
we do now. We do now know what we're missing is a big pile of drama. And that's the thing, right? Like, when did they get to achievement? How many runs did it take? How many pulls? Whatever, right? Were they only brought in for the final boss once? Like, when you look at logs, like when we look at logs ourselves, and we're looking at, we talked about Raider IO, now we're looking at logs themselves. Okay, so this Warcraft logs tool is great, or the armory is great, and it says they have a mythic Gahoon kill, but I mean, were they like, did they buy it? Were they brought in
Were
only
they
on like the
dead the
last two
entire
pulls?
time?
Yeah, were they dead the entire time? AKA, did they buy it? Um, Here's the thing: like, every guild out there, believe it or not, has people being carried. You looked at the top Blood Legion guilds out there, 100% guildies were being carried, and what that means is the highest. I mean, I would say that the lowest performers of that team, right? There was such a disparity between the median and the average players, right? They were still in Blood Legion, but they were just being carried because of really poor play or whatever drama or whatever was going on. And like, that's the same case in pretty much every guild, right? Where you're at the top guild or you're like, an average guild, there's always people sort of being carried, and not carried in the sense of like, well, they're dead the entire time, every single time, but they're just not performing to the same standard or level that the other guildies are, and that level continues to rise and rise and rise.
Exactly. But even if you go down the and discuss ranks, and the overtime police did a great job of sort of bringing that to the spotlight. They're still the best thing that happened
Oh
this
yeah, oh
year.
absolutely.
But ranks can be forced.
How do you mean?
I can well, instead of raiding my normal 2 or 3 hours a day, I can raid 6 hours every day, 7 days, 42 hours, put in a full time job, and get to the boss before you.
I see.
Does that?
Yeah, no, I
Yes.
mean, that makes sense, right? So what you're saying is, okay, Death Jesters, you're a 10.5 hour guild. I could force those ranks by adding an extra day or adding more hours, right? But technically, on WoW Progress and all of our official recruitment stuff, we only say we're 10.5 hours, right? And that's the thing, like that. Yeah, we can talk about overtime police and the big joke that overtime rating is. Sure, some people want to do it. That's fine. We used to raid 6, 7 days a week as a guild. We used to have some pretty crazy high rankings. But as life takes over, you don't have the same time or desire to raid as much. So yeah, and people say, yeah, we put in extra polls and days because we love Uldir so much, or they'll they're racing for a server first or a server second or a server third, or they're hoping that the guild behind them is not extending, whatever it is, right? So that's the thing, right? Like, who has the better team, the team that kills it in 209 or the one? So listen, my guild killed it. I'm not here to toot my own horn. 10.5 hours is all we rated. That's it, right? Like, there was no extra time. Like, we were pretty strict, respectful people's time. um, but what about the guild that, instead of rating 12 hours a week now, they're rating 16? The first week, they're putting in extra days. The last few weeks of Gahoon, they're adding extra days as well as hours in order to get that kill. Plus, they took them more pulls, right? But they, would beat us by a week. I don't know. Is that a huge, huge difference? Really, I mean, how
And
many?
isn't it really a better team? And we could have a whole nother conversation about, does it affect or impact the morale of your team by putting in those extra hours?
Yeah, I don't
And
know.
to some people, those numbers matter.
Hmm. Absolutely.
To me, I would rather, but we've already covered that Midgettes is casual, so let's get that out there. But I would rather take my time and do it smarter versus bust my tail and put in all these extra hours and spend longer doing it.
Hmm.
And there's a whole other logic between, do you lose focus after 3 hours? All of these things. Do you burn out your team to get that server rank? And it's fun. Those numbers are important. I'm not trying to discredit them. But I look at the fact that I know for a fact that one of the guilds, because that 250, I asked one of the raiders on their team,
Mm-hmm.
how long it took it, and they beat you by a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks.
I think it was
And
like a
they
week or
put
two.
in major. No, no, I'm not. I didn't ask them. I don't know them. I asked the number two,
Okay.
and I know the person on there. And they took over 250 polls, and I know they were raiding weekends and evenings, and they pretty much busted their tail. And so it took. They beat you,
Fantastic. How is your guild holding up right now?
right?
You see, guilds are a marathon, not a sprint. And as your guilds tend to fall apart due to extra pressure and morale and whatever, because of some of that additional time and investment, it's the way she goes. Sometimes she goes, sometimes she doesn't. And I mean, for some guilds, it's not going anymore, right? Which, it's great for my guild because it's like candy store. Hey, listen, guilds are falling apart. This is awesome. I want one of these and one of these and a warlock and a priest and a warrior. Give me one of each. And what is the cost at checkout? So yeah, I mean, those are some of the decisions that you have to make as as a leadership team. But not to go too off track here. Back to some of these rankings and Raider IO scores. A lot of it has to be used in context, right? Again, being first doesn't necessarily mean best. Listen, method aside, method fantastic guild. We're not even gonna argue, right? Like being first there is definitely being the best. But with respect to some of these other things, a top Raider IO score doesn't necessarily mean an excellent player. It just means they're really the first one to do their Mythic Plus done in that week, right, for that specific rank. And of course, if you're on a crappy server, you're going to have probably a higher rank. Whereas when you're on a server like Storm Rage, because of how saturated it is in Mythic Plus players, the chance of actually being on that leaderboard is quite low if you're a weekend player. That being said, if you're going to be a weekend player, you better start pushing those 15s, 16s, whatever, in order to get on that board. So yeah, so I mean, mythic kills, same thing. They don't necessarily mean equal mythic experience, right? You really have to look much closer in the logs, and use those tools to see.
So how do you use the tools with Death Jesters when you're looking at logs, when you're looking at a potential raider?
There's a lot of things. So we're looking at at the basic level, damage taken, whatever, how much they're casting, their intelligent choices in a raid. So who are they healing when, at what times? How is their mana usage? How is their how are they managing their resources? A lot of those different tools. Like there's a lot to look at when you're looking at a log. It's not just hey percentile, right? Like we're getting a lot of people that are applying a 2 out of 8 mythic because after 2 out of 8 mythic, guilds fall apart or people fall apart for whatever reason. And it's tough to judge on those two bosses because a lot of guilds do, the first or the second boss really differently, and the first one is just one big joke. So the rankings don't matter too much. You really have to look at exactly what's happening, right? I had paladins apply who had fantastic numbers, and then I look into these logs of like, okay, well, your rate, like we took 42 million damage, they took 52 million damage. This guy ran like full on aura of mercy, stood and shit on purpose. All that stuff was fed wisdom and innervates. I'm like, okay, well, there's a reason why your numbers are so high, right? It's partly because you were fed all that mana, and partly because your raid was a bunch of dum dums. So there's a lot of different tools, and again, it's all in context, right? You take a look at when and why, and same thing with those cutting edge achievements, right? It's well, when did you get them, right? That's what matters. It's one of the interview questions I have for a lot of players of okay, cool, what is the highest ranking you've achieved with your guilds, because that helps me build the context of where they're coming from, right? Are you coming from a US 150 guild, or are you coming from a US 500 guild, both of which are cutting edge, right? So there's a lot of context to look within that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's something that, I think as leaders, we owe it to the team,
Mm-hmm.
and we owe it to your community, because your raid team is more than just numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You've got different personalities, you've got a family and Death Jesters.
Absolutely.
And so you've got to not only consider, because maybe that top performer is a jerk.
Yeah.
Or
Wow.
maybe that guy that's more of the middle of the pack is really doing a lot of things for your community. And where do you weigh those decisions in a number?
You can't assign numbers to that. I mean, you can sort of put a pros and cons list next to each person. You can sort of rank players in terms of value and contributions to the guild of like, okay, well, this guy's got numbers here, but isn't the best person to be around because they're a super negative Nancy. So let's knock them down a few pegs. Whereas the guy, the other guy, he's pretty consistent, plays it safe, mechanics always there, never wipes the raid, does a lot outside of the raid in terms of community, does a lot of strat building. Not as good of a player as the other guy, but I might rank him a little bit higher. Again, it depends. Every guild's a little bit different. Everyone has their own little sort of weighting systems. For some, players, it's, hey, my girlfriend's up top there, and that's what matters. Probably not necessarily the best ranking system there. But yeah, I mean, you have to look at the people, right? The people behind the numbers sometimes. And again, it's looking at that context. Um, that's a big thing, right? You look at the context behind what's going on, and again, some of those intangibles are super important with building that team and building that community.
Absolutely. Well, as a player, we talked about the leadership side.
Mm-hmm.
As a player, and I'm on a dead server,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to get my Mythic Plus done, but I only play on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be sort of a dead server, but I'm not making those leaderboards. So I have this really low Raider IO score. How do I get into these runs? What do I do?
I mean, you want an answer from me, and my answer is going to be a couple things. I mean, number one, don't pug. Find a group, right? Like we have a lot of, okay, yeah, sure, I'll sell Zeros to Heroes here again. And so in Zeros to Heroes, like we have a huge thriving community, of 10 plus raid teams, people always doing dungeons and Mythic Pluses and whatever, and community events and all that stuff. So like, this is why I don't go pug stuff. Like I don't need to pug. I got hundreds of players I could choose from here, or could choose me for a dungeon run. Because there's always someone going on, and we don't really promote that crazy IO score, right? We're like, hey, if we're going to be pushing a 10, you should know what your abilities are for pushing a 10, meaning we're going to not just complete the key, but we're going to be pushing 11s and 12s and whatever, so your gear and proficiency should be there. Aside from that, like the biggest suggestion people give to this higher Raider IO scores or Gearscore, whatever, is make your own group, right? Like that's one of the best solutions we have is make your own group for these things, and you know what, make a reasonable whatever requirement it is, right? Like obviously somebody that is a fresh 120, probably don't want them in your plus 10 key, but someone that you ask them, hey, how much have you done? Like, oh yeah, I do 10s all the time, and I'm playing a shaman, unfortunately, and it is what it is, right? But yeah, start your own groups. That's the other big one. Or join a community that has, a lot of people to play with.
Well, I would like to start putting together runs, and I want to ask how many pets you have. I think that would be a good way, because at least I'll have a good time. And we'll get Mimi.
What?
You don't know how to get Mimi, do you?
What is a Mimi?
Mimi is the mummy,
What?
and he's in King's Rest. And he's very easy to get.
So what you're saying is after this podcast, we need to run you through King's Rest to get you this mummy pet?
No, I already have it. You
Oh.
need it, though.
Oh, I need it. Can't I just buy it or something?
Oh, you have to get it yourself.
Yeah, I think I might just buy it.
I don't think you can buy it. I think it's soulbound.
Oh, really?
Yes, and it's in King's Rest, but you didn't even know it existed.
No, I had no idea, because I mean that's what I have you for, to tell me about these pets.
Well, you need to go get Mimi. That's one of your to-dos.
Okay, put it on my list. But yeah, so I mean, well, what else do we have, right? Besides some of these tools, well, unfortunately, that's sort of some of the best we have right now. You have your WoW progress scores and your Raider IO scores and your item level and your percentiles, and at face value, they're very good tools, right? Like they're all good for the most part. It's how we use them that is super important, right? It's that context of breaking those things down of, well, when did you do the runs, the numbers behind it, all that stuff that may see if you have a good player for your potential group. As a community, I think it's more the responsibility is on us to ensure that we're promoting, I guess, realistic numbers from some of these things, quashing people that want the 380 item level for a mythic +5 dungeon, and really that goes there.
Well, and if you look at it, and when we first started BFA, especially with the BFA rush of all the new people that came into the community, We had to make those reminders several times. We didn't want them class stacking.
Hmm.
I mean, there's benefits behind the scenes to a focused raid team of doing some of these things, of class stacking and things of this nature. But for a community guild, it was very important to us to not put those kind of limitations within the guild. It wasn't trade chat, and that's not what we wanted. And trust me, we had quite a few conversations with people who didn't necessarily like that, and they may have chosen to go somewhere else.
Hmm.
Um, but we had to put that in place because they would come in and say, "We're looking for 370 for a Mythic +2." No, you're not. Not in this guild, you're not.
That's right, and that is how we've worked with our community to make sure that we have a welcome community, right? It's people can do whatever they want outside, but within this community of zeros to heroes and death jesters, we didn't want to promote class or role stacking, right? So if you're a typical zeros to heroes player, we dissuaded you from running an all leather group. Like, yeah, sure, it's going to help you, but the spirit is building community, not just stacking gear, right? The same thing that we don't want people having ridiculous item levels. And so we use all of these tools in our daily gaming decisions, from parses for potential applicants to Raider IO score for a potential pug or pushing higher keys. Used in moderation, these things are excellent tools to use to rate a performance of a player, right? Or skill and using those making decisions. They can be, though, overused and abused and cheesed to provide a skewed result. And leaders, you guys out there will often find that not every top parsing raider will be a great raider in terms of their utility, mechanics, awareness. Not everything translates really well. Some of those top players may be a glass cannon, right? So they do really high damage and then they blow up and die all the time. Um, and so they may not be reliable. And it depends on what you're looking for. But really, in my opinion, the best kind of player is someone that's well rounded, right? It's more rounded than any Raider parse or Raider IO score will ever be able to show you. Through trial and error, you'll learn to spot, the more obvious ways to cheese some of those scores. But the only way to tell is actually have that player on your raid, to actually be doing dungeons and commuting with that player. A score will not, let you know if the player will fit on your team, right? So they're not good metrics for recruiting, or if they'll be a valuable asset in other areas. You might as well miss out on a top star player because he didn't get his mythic plus done until later in that week, right? And again, this is for those of you average guilds out there. And there's an importance in these numbers for sure, right? Sometimes it's just bragging rights. Sometimes the rankings, that's what's important, which may be important to your team or to you as an individual player. And, maybe it was a goal and it was reach and has its place. And it's great to be number one, right? Or the first in your class or top parsing player or something to be proud of. Those are great. Those are good things to be proud of. And those accomplishments are fantastic. On the other hand, Mark Twain popularized the quote, most attributed to Prime Minister of Great Britain. There's three kinds of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. Right? You can go back to the number of 54% versus 46% that I mentioned earlier of Horde versus Alliance battlegrounds. And the quote is really meant to highlight the deceiving but persuasive power of numbers. Those numbers can be really skewed and abused. And you may have a better run, absolutely, of getting someone from a higher Raider IO score, but not necessarily. For instance, shamans, for the most part in the dumpster right now, our shaman Natoro, which is one of our elemental shamans, he's excelled on his shaman every friggin' expansion, right, since he's joined us. And even though the numbers were against him, his class, including the expansion, showed percentages much lower than other DPS classes, yet he's always excelled. He's always had that raid spot. And not only has he been a skilled player, but a great person and someone that's really been valued in our Death Jesters family. So just remember that, your daily interactions with players in the community, that that there is always more than just numbers to consider, right? There's the people behind the screen. That is what is important, right? Consider the next shaman that you may overlook because this class sucks this expansion. But you know what, a lot of those, a lot of top guilds may be running a shaman, or they may have an excellent shaman. So use the tools as they're intended, and they're not a final statement on skill, because you and the numbers, well, they very well may be wrong. And that's our podcast for tonight. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good night. Be excellent to each other. And as always, live your life heroically. Have a good night.